Hey, g'day everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Depot, the podcast focused on the transport industry and sharing knowledge within it. In this series, we're talking about health, safety and wellness and its impacts within the transport industry. Today, I'm here with one of New Zealand's greats, Sir John Kirwan. While he needs no introduction, I'm going to do one anyway. So here's a bit of a rundown on some of JK's achievements. Of course, an All Black. He played 63 tests for the All Blacks, scoring 35 tries, which is one of the highest scoring player stats in the history of the game here in New Zealand. He played for the Auckland Warriors in their first season. Remember that. Coached the Blues, Italy, Japan, the Barbarians as well. Maybe more importantly, though, his mental health advocacy and founder of the Sir John Kirwan Foundation and the organisations Mitey and Groov. Maybe those are some of his biggest achievements to date. Rugby commentator, of course, on Sky TV. He owns a wine company, importing and selling wine from Italy. Why would you not want to do that? Fantastic. And, of course, he is husband of Fiorella and father of three, Francesca, Nico and Luca, with apparently a grandchild on the way. I'll ask him about that. Just a warning before we start. Today's conversation does touch on talking about suicide and some other difficult themes, but of course there's a lot of great stuff in here, amazing things that we're going to talk to JK about. So I hope you enjoy this one, and let's get underway. Okay, JK, Sir John,
No.
John Kirwan. Which one? Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that
JK.
before we get going. You know, do you like this little piece at the front, Sir?
No, it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I think the
I wondered
protocol
about that.
is people should ask you what you'd like to be called, but I don't really give a
did.
shit.
Yeah.
So I'm known as JK, and
Yeah, good.
and that's fine by me. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Righto. Well, there's a bit to get through, and I thought we'd sort of break this into a few different bits and parts. Listen to a couple of the other podcasts you've done, are really interesting, and I appreciate you being here today to relive some of that again in this one. So we're going to crack off with early years, bit about the career you had as a sportsman, and then into the mental health side. Then number two, we'll understand the mental health illnesses and what they are, the signs, and what you've done to overcome them. What you're doing now, which is amazing stuff. And then I've got a few questions from the transport industry at the end of it, from fleet managers, dispatchers, and the likes that will put you to the test on. So that's the plan.
It's like a driving test.
Well, there won't be a test at the end for you.
That's good because I've never passed an
Yeah.
exam in my life.
Well, that's what I hear, leaving school very early. So we'll start with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so born into South Auckland and into a Catholic family. Give us a run on the early years of being a young man growing up where you were.
So I had a great upbringing, fantastic parents, three older sisters. I was the only boy, so not spoilt at all. Although I do have a shoe fetish, so I probably got that from my sister's shoe shopping, and enjoy dressing up, which you probably noticed.
Still do.
Yeah, still do. Pretty casual today, but besides that, so I had a really neat upbringing. Close relationship with mum and dad, especially dad. I was his only son, so lots of sport.
Yep.
Used to go to Carlo Park on a Sunday, and he'd go around and kick a footy with me. And school wasn't my favourite pastime. I wasn't very good at school. Left when I was 15. Took a butcher's apprenticeship with dad. Was either that or go for a builder's apprenticeship with my neighbour. So followed in dad's footsteps. Yeah. Pretty uneventful, really.
Not enough.
De La Salle boy, good Catholic boy.
Yeah.
De La Salle, and then Maris Rugby afterwards.
So was your dad did he play? Was he a rugby guy?
Dad was a leaguey actually. So
Yeah,
the funny story is my grandfather was in the post office. So we're originally from the west coast of New Zealand, Reefton. There's still a Kirwan's mine down there actually, and I've got the ring on my finger that my great grandfather mined personally and gave to his wife, which is Kate Kirwan, and they were born in 1885. So that's on the
it's on there.
on the wedding ring there. So
wow.
In the post office, it sort of got moved for work to Wellington. Dad was born in Wellington. Then he went to Hawke's Bay, and he was in the Hawke's Bay Shield era in 1924, 25. But working for the post office, earning like a bob, $1.30 or something. They said, we're going on a South Island tour with Hawke's Bay, and he said, I've got a young family, can you just cover my wages? And they said, yes. And then when he got back from the tour, they said no. So at that time he got transferred to Auckland. He was pretty disappointed in that happening. So he went to rugby league, went to Marist Rugby League. And so my dad and my uncle Fergie played rugby league for Marist.
Wow.
Both relatively good rugby league players, I believe. But I think Uncle Fergie hurt his knee and Dad hurt his collarbone. And so my grandfather went in one day and said, well, fellas, Fergie, you're better than Pat, my dad, at rugby league, so you can keep playing. And you can't, Pat, because someone's got to open the butcher shop on a Monday morning. So Dad retired.
And decisions were made.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Dad retired at the good old age of 23, I think.
Yeah.
They had a butcher shop in top of Parnell where they were brought up. And then Dad decided to split, and Uncle Fergie kept Parnell, and Dad went out to Onehunga. And we moved to a new subdivision in Mangere, where if there was a good westerly, you got the shit ponds as your perfume. But yeah, pretty normal life.
Yeah, pretty normal life. And so when did the rugby bug for you then? I mean, it took off in primary school and then onwards into your short-lived high school.
Yeah, look, I think I wasn't very good at many things.
It's funny you say that now.
But sport I was good at.
Yeah.
And so it was how I expressed myself. Struggled at school, struggled to learn. Retrospectively, I think my son said to me about 10 years ago, Dad, I think you're on the dyslexic scale. I said, why is that, boy? He said, I think I'm studying it at school and you're at... So, I struggled to read and struggled to write and struggled to put... I don't know if I'm dyslexic, but there's certainly some disconnection between what's in here and bringing it out, right? So, struggled for concentration, a whole lot of those different things. So diagnose me if you want, but that was just me. So left school, but sport was always how I expressed myself. Loved my surfing, played softball, played soccer, played rugby league, played everything I could. And, back in those days, there wasn't a lot of pressure on you. Everyone just said, oh, he's really brainy, he's going to be a doctor, he's going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a tradesman, you're going to be a butcher, and there was no big deal around it. So it didn't really affect me.
But also the sports side of things too, being not professional and, and no real focus on that stuff either. It was different. You did it because you loved it, right? Because you do. I mean, you still do it because you love it, but it changes. It changes now so quickly on because of the professional aspect of sport. Back when, I was growing up racing cars and stuff, it was all about fun. It was all not about career, not about, money. It was just because you loved doing it, which would have been the same.
And look, I think I feel sorry. I don't feel sorry for the young players. I think we need to change how we educate someone that's doing something for a passion, then turns professional. Because there's a whole lot of different things that come into it. Like I'd play on Saturday and go to be working on Monday, No one gave a shit on Monday morning. I was boning out beef at 3 a.m., But it gave you that natural disconnect from what you were doing. You might have gone out racing on a Saturday and, you might not have done so well, but Monday you got to go to work.
That's right.
And so you had that natural switch off, which I think is really healthy. I think now in professional sport that's harder to do, and then you've got I've also got the pressure of social media and the media and everything else, all that sort of stuff,
which it just analyzes the whole way through from once the game's finished till the next game you play.
Yeah, and I think you need to learn those skills. I mean, I think the public were way easier on us because they knew that we were getting up on Monday morning and going to work like they were. So I don't think they were as critical. Yeah,
completely. So you left, you went and worked for Dad, and then just tell us how the transformation then into the whole rugby full-time thing happened.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I got selected from the third grade into the Auckland team, so I never played seniors. So I came out of school, sort of 15, started my apprenticeship, 16 I think I might have been, and started playing for Marist third grade. And that's when I went from halfback to wing. So, Pete Sneddon, who the Sneddon, Martin from the cricket, this is his cousin Peter, who was my coach, my fifth grade coach. And he said to me, mate, I think you're a winger. You know, I don't think you're a halfback, because I'd grown exponentially in a couple of years. And he put me on the wing. So that was the first time I'd played on the wing when I left school and played club rugby. And I just really enjoyed the 5th grade. It was fantastic. Had a great time, new group of mates, discovering all the neat things back then in life, you know, partying and females and all those cool things, and just rugby and, you know, earning money for yourself, and just like that age where you don't really care.
Yep.
And then the 3rd grade, I was under a beautiful man called Eric Colassi. You know, you might know the Colassi family from softball. Eddie's been an amazing athlete. He was a very good centre in his own right, but New Zealand representative in softball. And he was coaching the 3rd grade, and that's when I really started going, wow, this is something that I'm really enjoying. I'm getting good at it. So I started concentrating a wee bit more and focusing on trying to be the best that I could be. And I started to believe in myself, because I've always had some doubts. So for me, it was like a way to express. You know, I often think about poets and artists and you know, musicians, how they need sport to express themselves, need their art, you know, music or whatever. And I was a bit like that with rugby. You know, it was something that I just had this euphoria about when I played. So, you know, for me, I was starting to take it a little bit more seriously, and then I was starting to make some rep sides, you know, and people starting to say to me, man, you can play. But then what happened was I was playing 3rd grade, and so 5th grade, 3rd grade, then the second year of 3rd grade, I was going to stay in the under-21, stay with my mates, as you do. And I heard this rumour that John Hart was looking to change the game, and he was looking at me, and I thought, oh, yeah, righto. But anyway, I think John Graham came down to watch me when I was playing a trial game against Mount Roskill. And anyway, I heard he was there, but I played, and I think I scored a few tries. And then John Hart rang me and said, you know, we'd like you to come to a trial game. And I said, oh, sorry, mate, I can't. You know, like, I've got to go to Australia with my best mate. We've been saving up for 2 years. So yeah. And I said, look, I'd really love to do it, but look, I've saved and saved. I've really committed to my mate. I don't want to let him down. And he got that, because, you know, Hart is pretty strong on his values. And he said, okay, there's another Barbars match in a few weeks' time.
What year?
That was 1983.
Yeah.
And then I played a Barbars game out in, I think it was Te Atatu. I marked Dougie Aldridge, who was a very talented player. And anyway, Hardy sort of said, yeah, oh, good, yeah, looks all right. And then I got another phone call, and Dad and I were working in the butcher shop, and he said, come and meet me on Wednesday afternoon after lunch. Now, Wednesday was sausage day, mate. So Wednesday was sausage day, right? So a couple of 100 kilos of sausages I had to make for the week. But I remember, Dad, we got a new tyre, you know, the old elastic ties. Got a couple of those new elastic ties out. Yeah. I had to change my shirt because it was pretty bloody from the sausages. And there we go, me and Dad in the HQ Holden. And we turn up at
you got that
at
bit
Fletcher
right.
Challenge.
You got that bit
yeah,
right.
The
Anyway.
HQ. Yeah.
Holden.
No, I've always been a bit of a Holden man, eh?
There you go.
My dream is to own a replica 1964 Holden station. I think it's the FJ. But anyway, my dad was a Holden man, so he had HQs, HJs, and we took the HQ to the old column change, and we sat in this massive office. So I'm shitting myself, man. Like, you know, I'm pretty introverted as a person back then, and that's another story. And we go into John Hart's office, and John Hart says, mainly to my dad, you know, we're sitting there in our butcher's clothes. I'd like your son to play in the curtain raiser on Saturday week. We're playing a World 15, and I think that, you know, he's got some real ability, and I'd like to have a closer look at him at the next level. And I'm thinking, wow, that's a shit hot opportunity. But my dad said, oh, nah, my son won't be playing in the second team. You know, then my dad was an amazingly beautiful, gentle man. Yeah. Wouldn't lift his hand to anyone. Quite introverted, quite quietly spoken. You know, he would say things, and you should listen because he wouldn't say them too often. So I'm going, Dad, did you just say that? But anyway, Hardy, being the intelligent man that he was, he said, "Oh, that's interesting. Why is that, Pat?" And Dad said, "Because if he makes a mistake in the second team, he'll never be good enough. If he makes a mistake in the first team, it'll be a mistake."
Just a mistake. Wow.
And so, yeah, that's pretty profound, right?
That's very wise.
Yeah,
very profound.
exactly. And my dad was an incredibly wise man, and so was my mother, luckily. So, yeah, so Hardy said, "Yep, I get that." So I started without playing a senior game for Auckland on Eden Park against a, sort of selection 15. And, yeah, never really looked back.
Wow.
Yeah, one day played, and I remember that Monday I was so embarrassed because my face was like, it was a full page of the paper, the Sunday Star or whatever it was, Sunday Times or whatever it was, and it was just like, what's going on here? Yeah, what's going on here? I wasn't expecting that, and but I'll tell you a funny story. This is so my dad, right? So I'm absolutely shitting myself because I've got to go to training, right? So you train for your club Tuesday, Thursday, and Monday, Wednesday you train for Auckland. So Monday I go to work. I've got my first training. You've got Andy Hayden, John Drake. You've got a guy called Greg Burgess, Gary Wetton, AJ Wetton, Joe Stanley. All these guys that I've been watching. Idolising. Yeah. And I'm going, I don't deserve to be there. I'm shitting myself. So anyway, I work all day. And I decide I'm going to clean the slicer, slice bacon and ham and all that all day for customers and that. So decide I'm going to clean it early so that I can ask Dad if I can take off, get to training early. So anyway, I clean the slicer and I say to Dad, can I take off a bit early tonight, to get to training? I don't want to be late. And he said, "You won't be late, so no." And then he said to me, "Can you slice me a kilo of ham and a kilo of luncheon?" I went, "Dad, I just cleaned the slice." He said, I need a kilo of ham and I need a kilo of luncheon. And he said, "Also, while you're at it, give me a kilo of Savoy's and a kilo of Cheerios." And I'm going, like, "Dad, you know how nervous I am about this, right? So why are you making me slice all this stuff and do this, right?" So anyway, you imagine me, I'm cursing under, and I slice it all up and I pack it all up and I put together. And he said, "Don't worry about the cost. Don't weigh it, just do it." That's a bit weird. So I wrap it. And anyway, it's sort of 5 to 5, and he says, "Righto, mate, you can take off now." And I'm about to take off, and he said, "Here.
Take this."
And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "It's a kilo luncheon, kilo ham, kilo of Savoy's, and a kilo of Cheerios." And I said, "What's that for?" And he said, "Well, what are you nervous about?" And I said, "Well, I'm worried I'm going to train like shit." And he said, "Well, if you train like shit, you put that out on the table after training, everyone's come straight for work, they will smash it, and they'll be happy to see it. They won't care. Exactly. And that's exactly what happened. I didn't train well because I was so nervous. And then after training, I whacked that on the table, and they just smashed it. And they'll see you Thursday, JK, and I'll see you Wednesday, JK.
Yeah. And so how many times did you have to take a kilo of ham?
That's interesting. Yeah, exactly. So that's interesting. 3 weeks later, my dad says to me, "Mate, if you have to keep taking that ham and luncheon, you're obviously not good enough, so you're going to have to start paying for it." So I just stopped cold.
That's gold.
Yeah, it was
that's
gold.
Absolute, your old man, he sounds like an absolute weapon. And then into the All Blacks.
Yeah, that was an interesting year for me. Lots of learning and just living the dream, man.
Yeah.
Like pinching yourself every single day.
Yeah.
Here I am. The real interesting thing about that team was, the next youngest was probably Foxy, right? And then a lot of them were older. So the first year I just played, didn't think too much, just played footy, loved it, learning my trade, learning how to be a great rugby player. And so for me, it was just this dream come true. I'd probably started having some anxiety attacks then, but I'd ignore them and go back to relative normal. But the interesting thing at the end of the year, I got told I was in the All Blacks, last game of the year. And so, they said, "Oh, you're in the All Blacks. Bernie Fraser's pulled out. No, he can't get anyone to drive his truck. So you're in." And that was before the last game of the season. And lucky,
that puts those days in perspective there. There with that. Oh, Bernie Fraser can't find anyone to drive his truck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then listen to the radio tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. There's no phones or anything. So I said to Dad afterwards the game, I said, they've come to me before the game and said not to worry that I'm in the team, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I wouldn't believe it until you hear your name. So don't say anything and we'll... So anyway, I'm sitting down with Mum and Dad the next morning, listening to the radio, and I wasn't named. Bernie Fraser found a driver.
Bloody Bernie.
Yeah. So I wasn't named, and I was embarrassed, ashamed, pissed off, like angry. I was all these emotions. And I thought, oh, okay, so I'm not good enough, eh? So I spent all that summer just really training hard to make sure that I never felt that humiliation again of being left out. So it was probably a positive. And, retrospectively, that tour wasn't a great one. So, but it certainly lit a fire under me. I didn't realise, because I was just living the dream, not thinking about higher honours. But then when someone dangles it,
all of a sudden,
for you, it's probably like being in a race and coming second and think, oh, yeah, that was great. But hey, he's got the champagne. Yeah. So for me, it just lit a fire under me, and I just realised that I really wanted to dedicate more time to it.
Yeah, wow. Far out. Well, that's cool. So when you did just touch a minute ago about some of these anxiety attacks that you threw to one side, you probably didn't know what the hell was going on. I mean, so when did it actually really start to solidify within you on a regular basis?
So I mean, this is all retrospect, right? So I was an anxiety-based depression. So anxiety and depression are two different illnesses. Yeah. You can have anxiety all your life, and it doesn't fall into depression, but a lot of times it does. So I was having these anxiety attacks, and they probably started when I was like 13 or 14, but then they would have called them homesick, right? So go away on a school camp and get homesick, anxious. I had a little bit of social anxiety. So I won a competition when I was playing rugby league for De La Salle, actually. My auntie Morven was the coach, and Mark Graham was my cousin. And Mark Graham was, I'll never forget this, giving out the award for the player of the year, and I was it. And I'm like 13, 12. And I was shaking. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to stand up in front of people. I did not want to go and receive the award, so I didn't go. And so, but I just didn't think it was anything back then, right? And no one.
I'm 12 or 13.
Yeah, exactly. And so, a couple of those things that I probably didn't address, and then as I got more famous, the anxiety attacks started coming more regularly, and then what would happen? I was have these anxiety attacks, and the best way I can explain them is they're just pure fear, right? Pure fear. So they leave, and you go back to relative normal, but they do leave a little scar, and I call that scar fear. So if they keep repeating themselves, you start living in fear that because you can't control it. Well, I didn't think you could back then. I know you can now. So I started living in fear later on during sort of when I was, 22, 23. And so the anxiety attacks would come and I'd go back to normal. They might come, every couple of months or once a month. And then I'd have morbid days, sad days.
So how long would that take? Like how long would it last for?
Like, sometimes a minute, sometimes an hour. Oh, yeah. But an anxiety attack only needs 10 seconds to make you shit yourself. Yeah, raw fear. So it would vary, and then you'd have a hangover from it. So you'd spend a few days, being scared. But then I was also having sad days, and I didn't know why I was like just really sad. So, I kept ignoring that, and I was playing incredibly well in the meantime. Like, player of the year in 87, 88, had probably the best tour of my life and just playing incredibly well. So from the outside, life looked pretty cool. Yeah.
But
it was.
I can't even imagine.
That's the contrast.
I can't imagine how terrifying that must have been at those times. You're trying to understand it or know what was going on.
Well, that's the problem, right? I had no awareness of it. So my reference to mental health was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right? So the reason I didn't talk to anyone about it because my real fear back then was I was going insane, right? So insanity back then means you get locked up. There used to be a place in Kingseat. I think it's a horror thing now where you can go and
get. Oh yeah, right.
You know what I'm talking about? Well, that used to be an institution,
and now you go there on purpose to get scared the shit out of. Yeah.
So if you think about that, if you think about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and my perception of mental health was that if I tell someone about this, I'm insane, so I'm going to be locked up. And that was a real fear. That was a big part of my anxiety. And then the other was, I've got a few sharks. And one of them was I had an imposter shark. I just didn't think I was good enough for where I was. I didn't think I was good enough to be an All Black. Didn't think I was good enough. Just thought I was lucky. So when's my luck going to run out? So if you put a couple of those things together, But the interesting thing for me, I say to people, but in between I was really happy. I was playing well and, it was weird.
And there was good things going on in your life.
Yeah, totally.
Enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
Because when were you in Italy? When did you go over there and play?
That was really interesting. I first went in '86 and had a great time.
Yeah.
So I was 20, I had my 21st over there. I went with this is another great story from my dad. So I'm at rugby training one night, and there's these two dudes at the end of the training field, right? One's got long hair and a ponytail, which is not what you would normally see in those days, unless you're a dope-smoking surfy hippie or something like that. And he's dressed pretty much like I dress today, jeans and a shirt and a jacket. And he's got another guy standing next to him, and he's really well dressed with an earring and all that sort of stuff. And I'm going, wow, I wonder who these dudes are training, on a Tuesday night or Monday night, whatever it was. Anyway, they come up to me afterwards and say, oh, JK, we're from Italy. We'd like you to come to Italy and play rugby. And I went, hey, what do you mean? He said, yeah, we're from Italy. We'd like you to come and we'd like to offer you $3,000, right? I'm earning $95 working for my dad, and I'm boning 3 bodies of beef out a week to get an extra $30, of which my mum keeps to put in savings. So I go $3,000, like, what? This is a fortune. So I go home and I'm really excited. I get home from training, right? And I don't know if you're having a maitre d', this is going, but so mum would have a maitre d' and she'd all put my food in it, keep it warm, right? So anyhow, I couldn't even eat. I was saying to Dad, Dad, mate, and he said, what do they look like, son? I said, well, one had long hair and a ponytail and a jacket and is wearing jeans and really cool pair of shoes. The other one, earring and he looked cool too, Dad. Don't trust the bastards, he reckons. And he said,
Dad said straight face too. Yeah.
Just don't trust the bastards. Yeah. You need to do some more digging before I'm going to let you do that. So I did some more digging. I spoke to Glenn Rich, who's a really good friend of mine. He was one of the early guys to go to Italy. Yes, he knew them. So I did all this research, and I went back to Dad, and I said, Dad, it's true. They work for the Benetton family. It's one of the biggest families.
Wow. Yeah, right.
Benetton.
That's why they dress so well.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they dress so well. Yeah. They have a rugby team. They want me to go over.
And they were scouting.
Yeah, scouting. Yeah. So anyway, he considered it and said, yep, okay. That's good, but $3,000 is way too much for you. So you can take your sister and your brother-in-law and give them half. So my brother-in-law played for Samoa. He's John Kirwan. He's a number 12 for Maris. Played with me, married to my sister. And so that's what we did. I gave them half. They played for another club over there, and I guess it was Dad's way of saying, I'm not going to let you go by yourself. I'll get your sister and your brother-in-law to look after you. Yeah. And so we all went. That was 1986. I fell in love with the place. Yeah. Here's me.
And fell in love with something else?
Yeah. No, that was a few years later. Oh, yeah. So you can imagine me, like meat and 3 vegetables.
Yeah. Italian food.
I'd never had a pasta. I'd never had a glass of red wine. Mum used to drink Cook Chazur out of the cask. But I'd never seen wine. We were meat and 3 veggies,
in a bottle. Wine in a bottle.
Yeah, amazing. So I landed and died and went to heaven.
Filled your boots.
10 different courses of different wine and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was just this amazing experience, and I fell in love with the place and said, right, I need to go back. And so I came back and I wanted to go after the World Cup. Well, I wanted to go in between the World Cup, but New Zealand Rugby told me if I go, I wouldn't be selected for the World Cup. So I didn't go. And then I played the World Cup and my whole world exploded again. Yeah. And I couldn't go back, so I sent my best mate, Craig Green, who still lives there. So, and then I went back in '89 and we won the championship, Greeno and I together, which was fantastic.
Awesome.
And that's when I met my wife in '89. And yeah, the love affair with my wife is still going, and so is my love affair with Italy.
Yeah, what a story. It's a absolute great story. Do you think and as you got more recognised and the recognition and the focus and everything, were your anxieties and bits? Was that getting worse? Did it change with the levels, or how?
It's a real good question, right? So people often ask me, do you think it was because of this, and that you got depressed? And my answer is, it's not prejudice. Like, doesn't matter. And I spent a whole year looking for the reasons why.
Yeah, right.
But there is no reasons why, you know. Did I have it in the family? Mum had postnatal depression, you know. And back then they said to her, take Valium and smoke cigarettes, which she did till she was 86.
Yeah.
So we have improved a little bit on our mental health. But, yeah, don't look for the reason why. It is, right? Often, like any other disease, and I don't like to think about any other diseases, but some of the healthiest people I know get cancer, right?
Exactly.
We don't know what that looks like. You know, some of the fittest people I know drop dead of a heart attack.
Yeah.
So I wasted too much time looking for the reasons why. When I said, I've got this is what I've got, now I'm going to work on it, was when I started to really...
and your doctor, Dr. Mayhew, he was the one that gave you a very important piece of information, wasn't it? Because he called it an illness.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I guess at my worst, and I tell this story often, you know, I wanted to jump out of a window one night on an All Black tour. I'd been hiding my anxiety, which then had fallen into a depression. So the best way I explain that is, you know, I'm having these random anxiety attacks, and if you can think about pure fear, I'm having those, and I'm not addressing them because I don't know what they are, and then one day they just don't go away, and I call that depression. So you live in that fear, and you live in that altered state, and it's a living hell. And so I was totally depressed and hid that as well. And I was having suicidal ruminations, didn't plan my own suicide, and for that, I always feel very, very fortunate. But it takes away your self-esteem, it takes away your self-confidence, and it takes away your enjoyment in life. And so from the outside, I'm playing for the All Blacks, I'm touring Argentina, but I'm just dying inside. So I was having all these anxiety attacks during the day and not recovering from them. And I just decided I'm sick of fighting, because a minute feels like an hour feels like a day, and a day feels like a week. So at the end of every day, I was absolutely exhausted mentally, because I'm also living a lie. I'm faking this shit, right? So I decided that this night I was going to jump out the window. And the guy lying next to me said, JK, you've got a good heart. And he saved my life, and that was Sir Michael Jones. Flew home. I played a test match next day, scored 2 tries. Flew home.
Why did he say that?
We don't know. Yeah, he said, I've often spoken to him about it, and he said, because he's really religious, Michael, you know, he's such a beautiful man. Yeah. He said, you know, maybe God told me. I said, well, if God knows who I am, I'm pretty happy, you know? But,
wow.
It was just incredibly strong. And those words, you know, people talk about how you change your mind and how you know, I did cognitive behavior therapy. I just call it rewiring your brain. But, you know, those words, JK, you've got a good heart. I said those to myself for the next 56 hours, every second of every day, even during the test match the next day. I was just running on instinct. I didn't even know what I was doing. But when I got home, you know, I finally had the courage to tell my parents. And then they said, you should go and see Doc Mayhew. But what you've got to realise is courage is a word. It's a bit like love. It's used all around the place, but it's specific to the person in the moment in time. And the hardest thing I've ever done was go and tell a doctor, because I'm thinking I'm going to get locked up with Jack Nicholson and the Chief, the bigger American Indian guy. And that's the reality. So my choice of going to the doctor was, okay, he's going to ring someone and I'm going to get locked up. Yeah. And then you imagine that in the papers. So, but he didn't.
But at that point, you were like, otherwise I don't know what I'm going to do.
I'm dead, man.
Yeah, so
I'm dead.
if that's what happens, that's what
I'm dead.
happens. Yeah.
I'm dead inside. I got nothing left. Got no energy. Got nothing left. I don't want to be here. Life's shit. So, yeah. But he didn't. He said, "Oh, JK, it's an illness, not a weakness."
Yep.
I said, "Oh, really? Yeah,
That's a light
Can
bulb. That's a light bulb.
mate.
Yeah.
Can I get cured from it?" Yep. Wow. You're serious? Yeah, JK, and it takes away your self-esteem, it takes away your self-confidence, it takes away your enjoyment of life.
He's telling
oh,
you
shit,
everything
3
you already knew.
symptoms.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not me.
Yeah.
You know, it's not me. And he said, no. And then, and
You
here's,
were-
here's the
sorry,
kicker.
Age? What were you?
Oh, 23.
Yeah, far out.
Here's the kicker. Right, this is what you need to do. You need to take some antidepressants and you need to go and see a psychiatrist. And I went, piss off, I'm not doing that. Like, what a dick. You know, like, I put it this way, you know, here's the same man that's going to the gym for 4 hours a day. Loved the mirror too, by the way. Murph, you know, loved the mirror.
Wow, what's not
you know,
to
I'm
love?
going to the physio if I'm injured, you know. It's just like I'm doing all these things for my physical health to be the best athlete I can be. But Doc says go and get some
Mental health.
So I didn't do anything.
You didn't listen to him.
Didn't listen. Idiot. Because there was still that stigma around it, thinking it was
Sure.
failure and stuff.
What if people find out?
Yeah, and I just didn't get any better. So I was still having suicidal ruminations. So I went back to him 3 weeks later and started taking antidepressants. And then I decided I was going to go and see someone. But the first trip wasn't that successful, and this is a really important message for people. So the first person I went to was a psychologist, and I walked in, and he said, "JK, you're a volcano. Can you feel all this power inside you? You know, go down and get." I don't want to be a volcano, you dick. I just want to get well, you know. But I walked out of there thinking that I was insane again, you know.
That didn't help.
It didn't help. So it was, I can laugh about it now, but it was 2 steps backwards, you know. And Doc said, look, JK, sometimes you don't connect with people. Sometimes they're not your people. I'm sure the volcano guy helped a lot of people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it wasn't
you.
wasn't
Not
what
for
I
you.
needed at the time. And then the second person I went to completely changed my life. Her name was Dr. Louise Armstrong. And she said to me, you know, if you had a tight hamstring, what would you do? And I said, I'd stop and stretch it. She said, okay, you've stopped and stretched it, you kept running, gets really, really tight, what would you do? I said, I'd stop, ice it, and go to the physio. She said, well, the brain's no different. Wow, shit, I've got a hamstring in the head. What's the ice? And who's the physio? Because I did the whole alcohol thing. I get absolutely shit-faced. And unfortunately, it worked for 2 hours.
Yep.
But then I'd go back at 100 miles an hour the next day. So I knew that alcohol wasn't the ice or drugs. So I just decided and this is another important message for whoever's listening, never give up, but don't fight it. I was fighting it, and I was fighting it with all my energy because I didn't want it in my head. The day I accepted it and the day I decided that I'm going to be really good at this illness was the day I started getting better.
Yeah. Accepted it.
I accepted it.
That it was
I
there.
accepted my illness.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, if I've got this, I'm going to take the same approach as I do to my game. I want to be an All Black of mental health. So I accepted it. And then I asked my anxiety attacks to come on. You know, I'd had 1,000 of them, yep, and they hadn't killed me yet. So instead of putting them in the cupboard in the corner of my mind and then jumping out when they wanted, I said, righto, come on. I don't care. I'll take you on. You can come. And they came. Arseholes. They came, but they were less powerful.
Because you'd had that mind shift.
Yeah, and then I also had some tools. You know, I was a little bit cynical. It's like living 2 lives, you know. You need all this help, but then you're cynical about the help, which is weird. But so I go to my psychiatrist. So the first meeting's like this revolution, you know, this revolution, like, wow, shit, okay, that's cool. So the second time I go back, she goes, would you like some tools to help? And I went, yeah. I thought she was going to give me another pill, right? What she said to me is, you need to learn how to breathe, JK. I just laughed. I said, what do you think I'm doing? Standing in front of you, I'm breathing. She said, nah, your breathing's all in your shoulders. You look tense in the shoulders. She was right. It still happens. Still get when I'm stressed and anxious, my stress still goes to my shoulders. She said, just learn how to breathe. And she said, I know you're traveling because I loved traveling pre my depression. But during it, I hated it because if you're anxious or depressed, you want to get out. You need an exit. And that gives you a little bit of safety because you just got to run, right, if one hits you. So flying was a nightmare.
Yeah,
I'd have anxiety.
stuck.
Yeah, stuck. I remember coming back from Italy once in '89.
In a tin can.
I had
Can't
36 hours of a full-on anxiety attack, scared I'm going to attack someone, wreck the plane. Like, it was the worst time of my life. I jammed 4 sleeping pills down my gob to get some relief. But here we go. So she goes, you can breathing. So if you're flying on Thursday and you attack your anxiety with breathing, you'll be able to control it. My response, bullshit.
Yeah, you're on.
But I'm going to give it a crack.
Yeah.
And that Thursday I flew and I did the breathing exercises that she told me, and the anxiety attack came, but it had less power when I breathed through it. Wow. You kidding me? And that sort of started my belief process, and then I just went on this journey.
You just never believed that was something that would work.
Would
right?
you?
No, of course not.
No. You don't. Did you believe turbo cars until you put your foot down? Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
Some things you just...
The concept of that makes no sense.
No, I don't get it.
But it did.
But it works,
Something so simple.
Exactly. But when you look at the science... So I started looking into this stuff because I'm a cynic, right? And so breathing basically sets your paranervic system, settles it down. It does all this different things in your brain around fear. And so it works. And I still do it to this day. I still breathe 6 times a day. I did some breathing exercises with a mate of mine this morning. I breathe before I go to sleep. I breathe before I came in here. I breathe when I leave here. And so it was amazing for me.
Bloody phenomenal, yeah, something like that. So look, you said the word stress before. We've talked about anxiety, depression. Can we just sort of identify the definitions there a little bit more too, to what they are to you? So your stress, that brings on anxiety, and then anxiety.
Yeah, I'm probably not I'm a butcher, mate, Murph. I'm a butcher, so probably not the right guy to talk to about the definitions. But what I do know is that I had anxiety, right? So the way I put it is, anxiety is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. So you can have, like, I was anxious before I ran out on the football field. But if I'd done the preparation, that's normal. I'm pretty sure you were anxious before you went around the course, right?
More than anxiety is different to being nervous.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's this combination, right? Prolonged anxiety is not good for you. So when I was having an anxiety attack, they weren't positive anxiety like you're getting ready for a race, I'm getting ready for a game of football. This was real fear.
Yeah.
So what I had to do was unpack it. So I had to unpack why I was getting anxious, right? And that fell into the depression. So I went on the antidepressants, and they gave my mind some balance to actually assess where the stuff was coming from. So I had to dig quite deep into it, find solutions to get me out of my anxiety, and find solutions to understand all those things. Did that sound too complicated? Because it didn't sound too sensible coming out. Did you understand what I just said?
Well, yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Absolutely.
So...
But then it leads into, where does the depression then come?
Yeah, well, the depression is, like I said, the depression for me came from my anxiety attacks and letting them run wild.
Yeah. And
it fell into a depression. The best way I can explain what my depression was, and you're better off asking a doctor, it's just a full-time anxiety attack.
Yeah, right.
Without any breaks. That's the best way I can explain.
And that can last for?
Well, it didn't go away.
Just stayed.
It just stayed. Yeah. And so, some people can have depressive episodes all their life. There's, if you think about the scale, there's probably schizophrenia, which is really, really, really bad. And Then there's bipolar, which is people who have highs and lows. Depression, anxiety, there's sort of all that in that spectrum, right? And so I think I was an anxiety-based depressant. Yeah.
So what have you got in place now? You've got a daily mental health plan.
Yeah, I've got a daily mental health plan. So sort of going on that journey and getting pushed in the right directions where I can do things in my day. So you would have heard, about Te Wharatapawha, you would have heard, the 6 pillars of well-being and all that sort of stuff. What I try to do is personalise that. So well-being's this massive word, right? But actually what you need to do is build the 6 pillars in your day that look after preventative mental health. So what I found post my illness, I think if I had pre my illness, I don't think I would have fallen into it. So an understanding of what anxiety is good, what it's bad, what it needs to do for you. So basically, the first thing I started doing was, so a couple of things happen. It's an illness. I can work on it. Go to a really good psychiatrist. She goes, here's some tools. So I start looking at these tools going, is it that simple? Surely it's not that simple. The antidepressants start kicking in and I start get some balance. I'm not having suicidal ruminations. I'm getting a little bit of balance, starting to feel that I've got JK back a wee bit. So then I put the breathing into my day. Oh, wow, that's working.
That's helped.
So that's helping the anxiety, so I'm not as scared to travel. Wow. Why don't I put that into my rugby before I run out on the football field? Yeah. Why don't I put that in during the game? Yeah. Gee, that's helping. And habitual change is really hard. You know what I mean?
Very much so.
So I started putting those in my day and they started to become habits. So then I started digging a little bit deeper, right? So she says to me, JK, how would you like to try meditation? And I go, wow. This is late 80s. If you did yoga back then.
What's this fancy witchcraft you talk of?
Yeah, exactly. If you did yoga back then, you're a dope smoking surfy freak. There's no bloody Lululemon or anything shit like that around, you know what I'm saying? And so I go, but I'm open to anything, man. I'm going to give this a try.
Because other stuff has worked. So
totally.
Man,
well, the breathing's work, right?
Yeah,
so let's go.
Yeah.
So, and if you can meditate, anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you can meditate, you should. It's absolutely amazing for your mental health. But there is a small percent of the population that it's not good for them. No. So I go and I get another anxiety attack, and it's really. And so I go back to my psychiatrist and she says, look, JK, meditation is a fantastic thing to do.
Maybe not for everybody.
There's a small percent of the population that it makes them more anxious and stuff. You probably have a ruminating mind. And I go, okay, I don't even know how to spell that shit.
Yeah, or what that means.
So break that down for me. And so I just call my mind Bob the Monkey, right? So this is how I explain Bob the Monkey. Have you ever watched Netflix, right? So if the movie or the series is not good, after a minute, Bob the Monkey goes, yoo-hoo! JK, let's think about tomorrow. Let's think about yesterday. Let's think about shit that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Right? If I go to bed, right, and don't either read or do my breathing or I have a sleep routine, Bob the Monkey goes, yoo-hoo, JK, let's think about tomorrow. Let's think about yesterday. And let's think that shit that's irrelevant. So once she explained that to me, I then turned that into, okay, so I need to put Bob the monkey in his cage and give him a banana so I can get some rest for my brain. So you translate this back to when I had an anxiety attack, I'd have a thought and I'd run for it. So my brain's really tired because Bob the monkey's on a treadmill.
Going. Yeah.
Totally. He's not stopping, right? And so I go, okay, what can I do that switches Bob the monkey off? So when I read, Bob the monkey hates reading. Goes into his cage, just has a banana. So if I read before I go to sleep, Bob the monkey gets pissed off, goes to his cage, and goes to sleep, and I go to sleep, right? When I cook, it's like putting my brain in a washing machine. And so if I cook, Bob the monkey hates it, going to his cage and his banana. But it's also something for me to look forward to. So, and the other thing, and this is really important for you people out there, because everyone's way too busy to have a normal life nowadays, 2 birds with 1 stone. For your mental health, you have to have 2 birds with 1 stone. So if I cook, I put Bob the monkey to his cage and have a banana, I come out of it feeling better, but who else do you think quite enjoys it?
Your lovely wife.
Exactly. Yeah. So she doesn't think I'm such a dick. 2 birds with 1 stone. Perfect, right? So I'm looking after my mental health and I'm doing something good around the home. Yeah. And the other thing that I do is I play the guitar. I took that up during COVID. It sounds like I'm killing a cat in the lounge, but Bob the monkey doesn't like it. So I can play for half an hour and it's like washing my mind. So I'm always looking for little things like that. And so that's my chill. And also I've been doing quite a lot of reading on neuroplasticity around age and dementia and rugby and all that sort of stuff. But one of the pools, one of the 6 pillars is chill. So the 6 pillars are chill, celebrate, enjoy, do, move, and what's my last one? Connect, exactly. So I put those in my day, okay? So for example, I went and saw my mum and I said, Mum, I'm dead. I'm dead, I don't want to be here. And she said, well, the good thing about you, son, is you're still here. You're dead, you're still here. So why don't you smell the roses? And I'm going, yeah, okay, smell the roses. Good one, Mum. So I drive home thinking, what could that look like for me? How do I smell the roses? And smelling the roses translated means stop and enjoy the moment, right? And when you're in this bad place, you're thinking about the future and the past. I shouldn't have done this. What's going to happen if? And so the next morning I got up and I decided that my smelling the roses was going to be a hot shower. And so I had that hot shower and it was fantastic. I can still feel the water now talking to you. And so for that 2 minutes, I felt fantastic. And I got out of the shower, and how do you think my day went?
Good.
No, I went like shit.
Oh.
But I had the shower to look forward to, right? And I thought, wow, during the day, I'm still getting anxious and I'm still in the middle of my mental health, but I'm looking forward to the shower. So I thought, wow. And the next morning, same thing happened. And I thought, okay, so how can I build on that? So I went downstairs and I brewed myself an Italian coffee. And I think you'd call that habit stacking. So all of a sudden, in my day that was shit, I had 2 things to look forward to.
Really look forward to.
Yeah. And so I started building these things. So add the breathing, right? Add that I've learned that I need to disconnect my brain. I say to people, what do you do when your computer craps out? It's the first thing you do.
Ring someone?
Yeah, and what do they say?
Get a new one.
Or turn it on.
Oh, turn it
off and turn it off
and turn it on again.
Yeah, and how often does that work?
Pretty much every time for me.
Our brains are no different. So what I was learning is that I'm building these 6 pillars into my day. And I'm learning that, did you have an Auntie Betty that had purple rinsed hair?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I did. And Auntie Betty used to knit.
Right.
Used to drive, tick, 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 right? I read an article the other day that knitting is really, really good for your mental health. Like you might have done Lego when you were a kid, or you might have done painting, or you might have, right? And so all of a sudden, the daily mental health plan that I have is just putting those things
So it's got so many
into
things.
my days, and they only take 3 minutes.
Yeah,
they only take 5 minutes, right? So they are in my day. For me, connection is when someone comes into my heart, I'll text them. Right, so I connect through the phone.
Yep.
My sons live overseas. I love talking to my wife and daughter every day, so I connect through technology. I love connecting with people. Really excited to come and see you today. Yep. But I love connecting with nature. I love surfing and all that sort of stuff. But then also, one thing that was really important for me is: have you ever read the book Quiet?
No.
So I'm actually an introvert that enjoys being an extrovert, but I need to get that energy back. And so I read the book because I was an extrovert outside my house and I was coming home and being an introvert. So I wasn't bringing my family into my life. So I had to learn that an introvert that likes being an extrovert needs to get time back. So at the end of this, I don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah, for a
right?
while. Yeah.
So I've been extroverted with
Yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah.
but then I need to get that energy back. And the more I do, the more time I need. So I had to work out how I can give energy to my family and then fall off the cliff from I don't want to talk to anyone. So I was starting to learn about all these things and all the, the sharks that I had in my head that I had to address. And so I started feeling better and I thought, wow, this is, I am going to get through this. I am going to get on top of this, and I am going to go back to being.
And it sounds like, way you've just put that out there. It sounds like it's a whole lot of work, but you've broken it down, and it's just little pieces that actually all come together to be able to control it.
Yeah,
as well.
that's why I'm really
because people would it's just sounds like it's a huge amount of effort that I'm going to have to. Yeah.
It's not, actually. But don't let yourself get unwell before you learn it, because it was a shitload of learning for me and really hard because I was unwell.
Yeah.
So, where I am at the moment is the world as it is pushing people off the cliff.
Yeah.
So I've been at the bottom of the cliff.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm talking about this is you got to put this in your day now. We pretty much know, like, you're not as old as me, right? But the 80s was about stop smoking, you shouldn't drink too much. Beginning of the 80s, we all had a fag. What was the motor industry like?
Oh,
fag
drinking, smoke. Well, they were sponsored by cigarette companies and
exactly.
Stuff. Yeah,
and no one gave a shit, right?
No,
because we didn't know any better.
No.
By the end of the days, people saying, yeah, maybe you shouldn't smoke, and let's get your heart all organised. And now, do you know what diet should we do? We're vegan, vegetarian, Julio, shit, I don't know, right? But we have that information, and you make those choices. And I don't judge anyone's choices. Do what you want. You want to smoke? I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Right? Your choice. You know the options. Right? You know about diet. You want to be a vegan? Good shit. Right? You want to be a vegetarian, pescatarian?
Yeah.
Good on you. Good on that. You've got your information. You want to live your life, cool. But what we don't know is we've got this awareness around mental health, but we actually don't know how to look after ourselves.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so fervent on the 6 pillars, because I don't want to push people off the cliff, because it's way harder once you're down there.
To come back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I've learned all these things, and if you put them in your day, then
it makes a difference.
It is actually scientifically proven to be preventative mental health.
Yeah.
So you're actually preventing getting pushed off the cliff.
Yeah.
And they're simple, they're really simple.
Yeah, you were you're one of the first. I mean, I have heard you talk about this to put your face to mental health, and I know that was a bit of a thing to start with for you too. You were like, oh, I'm not going to do that. You were concerned that was going to ruin your reputation, and all of a sudden you're going to be looked at differently. So, I mean, now you look back on that. I mean, I think everyone's glad that you did decide to take that on.
Well, you can blame Kevin Denham, my great mate, because he sat outside my house for 24 hours and wouldn't take no for an answer.
So he was charged with doing some ads, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He's a beautiful creator, and I trust him with my life because he made those ads really simply, which means I could talk to people, because the process of agreeing to it and then getting the ad right or wrong, you get that ad wrong, you're dead.
And exposing it to the public.
Totally. Yeah. And so he was pretty genius around that. And there was a few others involved from FCB. And so the decision to do it and then the end product was just this stressful time of it could ruin my reputation. But once again, my mum comes into it, I rang mum and I said, Mum, they want me to do this. What do you think? And she said, how bad is it in there? I said, it's hell on earth, Mum. And I said, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And then she said, well, do you think if you did the ads it would help one person? And I said, yeah, I do, Mum. And she said, we should do it. So that's been my philosophy.
Boom.
Just one person. If I can help one person not suffer that hell, then it's going to be worth it. And in retrospect, it's been this journey of love, man. Like I get hugs in the supermarket.
Yeah.
It makes me cry still, and it gives me this energy to keep doing it. I mean, I love Butterbean. I love Mike King. I love Jazz Thornton. I mean, this is a new generation, man. It's their time, and they're picking their causes and they're just out there doing it. So I love all of them because
and they're driven by the same things because
Yeah,
they know
yeah.
they know the things they're doing.
Yeah.
They are making it. They're making change, and it doesn't.
Totally.
And as you say, you want to help everyone, right?
Yeah.
You want to help all those people, and it's a long journey to do that. But knowing that it has made a difference to someone is so
look,
cool.
and I think, Barbarians is Samoan, so he can talk to Pacifica, Mike's Māori, he can. So when you look at mental health, it's not prejudice.
No.
So whenever you look at it, you can look at a wide array of people and say, well, it isn't prejudice. There's Mike, he's suffered. There's Butterbean, he's suffered. There's Jazz Thornton, who's been through her. There's JK, middle class white guy, and if we can go, wow, it's okay that it happens to me, because it is normal. So that's the beauty of maybe being one of the early people talking about it. It is now, so many more people are talking about it and connecting with others. But my biggest passion now is preventative mental health. This is a massive issue, right? So 800,000 people committed suicide last year. That's a pandemic, We closed countries for COVID, but 800,000 people committing suicide. So I don't think governments now have the resource to keep up with this problem.
No.
So we've got to take it back to the community and we've got to start preventing it. So I've created a foundation called JK Foundation. We have a curriculum for primary schools that teach our tamariki how to look after their mental health. And then I've got a digital company called Groov where we go and Mitey's the foundation and JK Foundation. Mitey's the program that goes into schools. We're in a couple of hundred schools. My goal is to get to 1,400 schools. And then Groov is a tech company that delivers preventative mental health into the workspace, which will help you be more productive, help you retain great people, and help you care for your people. So they are the two things I'm doing in the preventative space.
They're huge. I mean, if can I just ask you about what you are achieving now and those things that you're doing. I mean, you've had this recognition and through sport and everything, but what makes you the proudest? I mean, is that an easy question to answer? Or
no, it's a really easy question because JK doesn't have a past and he doesn't have a future. He just has today. I don't have yesterday. So sometimes, like me being a rugby player, it's like this other...
Did that happen?
Did that happen? And I think one of the great things that the All Blacks taught me was humility. So what I did yesterday is irrelevant. It's what I can do today. And so I don't even think about it, to be fair. I don't have a past really. I've got goals for the future and I've got things that I want to achieve. I think they are normal, but I don't go too much past that. So if you put day, and it's way less, there's way less anxiety in life if you just concentrate on today.
That's true.
I just got to be great today.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get to the end of the day and I haven't been.
Yeah.
And that's okay too because I've got tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll just wake up tomorrow and go have another crack.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of the teachings from mental health have given me that philosophy. So I don't get too stressed or upset about things. I'm pretty relaxed. I do get pushed towards burnout. And I know in the transport game, which we're talking about now, burnout is a mental health issue, right? So I have been well, so I'm mentally well, but I've also been burnt out, right? One was coaching the Blues, and then I get the warning signs often. So it's really important that you understand burnout as a mental health issue because the world is getting pushed to burn out.
Yeah. Too much. Just piled on one thing after another constantly. Yeah. And a little bit of this, if we move into the transport side of things a little bit, the New Zealand way is she'll be right or harden up, and to, not talk about your feelings and we've got in the demographic of, demographic around New Zealand transport drivers.
Yep.
The age that they're within, which is, I think it's somewhere between, was it 40 something and 58 or something, I think, is the average age of transport drivers,
What's the age? 48 and above?
To 58. And there's, I think, 20% are above the age of 60, 20% of the, and so the
it's my demographic.
But there's a culture in there, right, too, that they've come through, and they're getting a bit about that harden up kind of thing, as well, which is really challenging, isn't it?
Well, it's really interesting because that's how I was brought up.
That's what I mean, yeah.
And it's not our fault, people. It's not our fault. So when we got brought up, there's 3 emotions: happy, sad, and don't cry. Right? So I remember when I was really unwell, I cried and then felt like a failure. Worked that one out. So it's not our fault. But the way I adjusted it and the way I tried to bring up my kids was for me, a male needs to be tough physically. So, if my son fell over, I would say, don't cry. You should try and feel that pain and be tough. But if you're emotionally hurt, cry. So one of the proudest things for me is my 2 boys can cry. I still struggle to cry, right? So rugby, racing and beer, harden up, that is a bullshit in our past that we need to get rid of. Because being vulnerable is the biggest strength you will have as a male, right? And, my dad was stoic. My dad had a heart attack, went and sat down, got through it and finished the day. You know what I mean? That is like next level.
That epitomises it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you'll know 3 stories like that of people. Yeah. But the reality is that, to connect with someone deeply, you need to be vulnerable. If you want to connect with the new generation, you've got to show some vulnerability. You don't need to let your emotions be on the inside because it's gonna really hurt you.
Yeah.
So we just need to change that. Now that doesn't mean like go around hugging trees. You still got to work hard. You still got to provide for your family. You've still got to be tough and resilient in times of turmoil.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't show emotion and be vulnerable and say, I'm struggling with this today.
And tell someone and ask someone and communicate.
Tell someone, communicate it, because you will get up the next day and you will do it.
Yeah.
By being emotional and showing some vulnerability doesn't mean that you're not going to do what you do, because that's part of your character. It's part of your values.
It doesn't make you weak.
Exactly.
Which is
it makes you stronger.
The stereotype might, seem to be.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing that I can say. I wrote a book called Stand By Me, where I got a whole lot of psychiatrists and psychologists in the room, and I said, right, I want to parent this. And because I'd been through my own mental health journey, but I didn't know how to parent it in my own home, right? Because I got brought up. We are not equipped to be parents today. I talk about my dad, and my dad went away for the weekend, and he came back, and he always caught me. He knew I'd drunk his whiskey. He knew I'd driven his car. He knew I'd had a party and slept in his bed. You know why? Because that's what he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're a generation apart.
Yeah.
Whereas now with the kids,
yeah.
I wouldn't know how to deal with cyberbullying.
No.
Because I don't know how to deal. I wouldn't know how to deal with the expectation. I mean, success for me when I left school was a Maury 1000 van. Now the kids' expectation is they've got to,
who knows? It's not one thing.
Yeah, and that gets pushed at them every day. When you didn't get invited to a party when you're growing up,
that
you didn't find out till Monday.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't get videos
right,
and, everything thrown at you. So like things have changed, and I think vulnerability is something that we need to do. So I said to these psychiatrists, what do I do? And they said, well, sit down for dinner every night. And I said, well, that's easy. I've married to an Italian. If I don't, I'm dead. So that's easy. Second is show some vulnerability. And I went, oh, shit, They said, well, you don't have to cry the first night, you dick, You could just, And so I tried it. So the next night I said, I'm really anxious about tomorrow. And my 2 boys and my daughter was there as well. And one of my boys said, why, what's going on? I said, I'm presenting to 200 people. And one of them said, have you prepared? Great answer, right? Great question. I said, yeah, I'm prepared. But sometimes preparation doesn't mean that you're not going to be anxious. So I'm pretty anxious about it because I don't want to fail. I'm always scared of failure. And the little one said, oh, yeah, me too, Dad. I'm scared of failing my exams. Boom, opens a different conversation. And then my daughter says to my son, why are you scared? You're really intelligent. Response? No, I'm not. Wow. So all of a sudden, you've got this conversation on your hands that is not about mental health, but about,
and support each other.
Some sharks,
Yeah.
some little sharks. And so once you start having those conversations around the dinner table, but you've got to start them, because it was never. My dad didn't tell me, that the business was in trouble or he's struggling or, he had a...
You never knew nothing.
Nothing,
man. Everything just rotated through.
Yeah, and not their fault, man. That's how they got brought up. Not their fault. My parents were amazing parents, right? I only saw my dad cry once, and that's when his brother dropped dead, So, but we need to change. We need to change because it's not good for your mental health.
No. We've got a few questions from some of the operators in the industry. Okay, so, the transport industry, it's 45 to 59 is the average age, 20% over 60. There's a lot of average physical health. They're isolated on the road for long periods of time away from, whānau and family, and they're by themselves, so a bit of loneliness, shift work, poor eating, poor nutrition, all this kind of stuff as well. So we've got some questions.
Yeah.
Being a professional driver requires alertness and focus for long periods of time. Did you find that stress, anxiety, or depression impacted energy levels? Which we know the answer. So, it just saps energy, yeah?
Yeah. No, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I think for you guys who are driving, for me, it was concentration. Like trying to concentrate was the hardest thing I did when I was really unwell. I just couldn't concentrate, because my mind's jumping all over the place.
Old Bob's running around.
Yeah, Bob is sort of really, really jumping around. So for me, that was the hardest thing. Concentrate. I could still I got player of the day sometimes when I was depressed.
Yep.
Because I was running on automatic, and I guess that's a little bit like driving, right?
Yeah.
You can
it becomes
a bit robotic, which when you're probably in the most danger. So, yeah, I think if you're unwell, then those things are just really important to. Firstly, so when I'm in my groove, I talk about being in my groove, and this is really important. Everyone who's listening to this, next time you stop the truck or next time you got a minute, just write down when you're at your best, right? Because then you're in your groove. So I'm really curious when I'm in my groove. Everything's good at home. I'm creative, right? My sharks are at bay. So I have a dumb shark. I've got an imposter shark. I've got a I want to be like shark, and I've got a guilt shark, right? I've dealt with all those, so they don't affect my life. But when I'm starting to get
anxious,
doing too much, then the sharks come back. So when they're at bay, I'm really good, right? So I know when I'm in my groove. I know when I'm feeling good. I'm really positive, glass half full, all those things.
Yeah.
And that's really, really important, right? Because you need to know when you're not in your groove.
Yeah.
Okay? So when I'm not in my groove, for example, I was not in my groove this morning. Okay? So I haven't had a day off for the last 3 weeks. I've been working really hard, traveling, that sort of stuff. I got up this morning, and when I'm out of my groove, I also feel, oh, shit. Why do people want me to do all this shit?
I've got to go and see Murph this afternoon.
I've got to go and see Murph this afternoon. I've got to go to work. Why is this shit happening? Oh, hang on. That's your burnout sign. That's your little shark coming back, right?
Yeah.
And then, but who wants to listen to you anyway, JK? You dumbass.
Yeah, sure.
Dumb shark's coming back, right?
Yeah.
So I call it my AAA battery, and I've got a photo of it here because I think it's really important. Because when you're in your groove, you need to understand when you're not in your groove. So if you're driving your truck right now and you're listening to this and you've worked out what your groove is, I think I talk about my AAA battery, right? So here's the AAA battery. I think your camera's over there. This is really important. So if I asked you, right, I bet you sometimes you're aware, right? So I'm aware that I'm working hard at the moment and working every day because I do my day job and then I do rugby on the weekend, right? So I'm aware of that. So if you're driving a truck right now, you think, oh, if I know what my groove is and something's happening at home, I'm talking about myself now, I'm aware of that. But then you got to acknowledge it. If you acknowledge it, then you go, okay, this is actually what's happening to me, right? And then you've got to act on it. So wake up this morning, got a meeting at 9 o'clock, I've got a friend coming in, we're going to do ice baths, but I'm off edge. right? I'm going, I'm not in my
Can't get
groove.
your shit together.
Not my shit. So I had, after the 9 o'clock meeting, I had an hour and a half where I was supposed to do admin, right? What I did is play the guitar for an hour, and that just reset me. Now, not everyone can do that, right?
Yeah,
I understand
yeah,
that,
yeah.
but I worked yesterday. So there's things that you can put in your day that suit your lifestyle that just reset you. So I was really aware that I'm working really hard at the moment, so I'm starting to get out of my groove, but I acknowledged it. I said, what can I do straight away?
Yeah.
Right? And that was, I'm going to take an hour now, and then I can catch it up tonight. I can sit and do an extra hour because my energy level's back.
Yeah.
Right? So those things are really, really important, that you use that AAA battery. If you're feeling anxious about something, you'll be aware it'll be ticking away.
That's what's doing it.
You know?
The trigger.
But then acknowledge it. Okay, it's that. And then act on it.
Breathing's
what
gotta
do I
be a
need
good
to do
one.
it? Yeah.
Right.
So, for me, the breathing's a good one. You can breathe in the truck as you drive along, or when you stop, when you take your breaks, you know. So for me, it's that sort of acknowledge it and then put something in place that's going to help it.
Yep. Drivers spend a lot of time on the road, in cabs by themselves, so they're lonely, obviously, I imagine, being away. What can I do? So this is from a fleet manager. What can I do if I'm worried about the mental state of one of my team? He's not, I'm not qualified to deal with mental health, but how can I check on them? What is a good thing to say? Where can I direct them if I think they need help?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I say to managers and leaders of people, just keep stepping in. So at Groov, we call it performance care. So when you sit and speak to your driver, start with the care side of things. How's things, mate? How are you? And that's what you'll hear in the future as a psychological safety bridge.
Yeah.
Right? Psychological safety bridge, and I'll break this down for you, is just trust, right? So it takes a long time for us to trust people with what's going on in our lives. So as a manager, if you're worried about someone, then you should sit with them and ask them if they're okay, right? And keep stepping in. Keep stepping into that. What do you need?
Yeah,
not once.
Because you're probably not going to get an answer the first time, right?
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
So build your one-on-one. So in the old days, it was just performance based, even in rugby, right? But now, if you don't put the care component to it, you're not going to get the performance out of people. Second thing is, don't be the expert. Okay? So, like the first person I spoke to about my mental health, he told me to harden up. He's still my best mate, right? And I said to him when I came through it, why'd you say that? He said, well, I didn't know what to say. I'm not an expert. What else you want me to say? That's what I got told.
Yeah.
Great answer, right? So the best thing you can do is listen, right? Don't comment, because what's good for them might not be good for me. And then what you need to do is walk next to them when they need help. Okay?
Yeah, don't leave. Don't walk away.
Just walk with them.
Yeah.
What do you need? Do you want to go and see someone? Do you want me to ring an AAP? Do you want me to come with you? What do you need to get to the next stage, right? So those things are really, really important. You just sit, have a one-on-one, but then walk with them. Don't, this is what I do,
I've asked
this is
the
what
question
I do.
now, but also I've asked once, so I've done my job.
Yeah, and it's scary, man. If you're a leader, it's scary space, right?
Yeah.
Because you're scared they're going to say I'm suicidal, or,
you're going to get something that
you're going to get something that you really can't deal with.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. So, okay, I've never experienced it, but I'm here for you, man. What do you need? Can we get you a counsellor? Can we get you this? Can we do this? Can we do that? And you'll be absolutely amazed. And then just keep it really confidential.
Yep.
No one needs to know except you and that person.
Yep.
So, that's what I do. And communication is really important. When I talk about communication, make sure that you listen and they feel that they've been heard. So this is really interesting, and it's to do with a truck driver. So this guy was not going good at home. He was about to split up with his partner, and life was shit, but he was keeping it from his boss, and his driving was being affected. And the boss sat down and had a care conversation, and this driver shared it with him. And just the sharing was enough for him to actually get through the day and through his job and feel okay about delivering his work while he was dealing with home stuff. So sometimes just sharing. Now, other people might share it with you, and they might need a little bit more help. You know?
Yeah. That was enough, but exactly.
Yeah,
Everyone's
that was enough
right?
for that person. But if you start building those relationships around that trust piece, and that's what that's what the government will be driving people. So if you want to be a leader of the future, you need to step into the space, because there are not enough psychiatrists, psychologists, and counsellors out there to help people. Yeah. So managers need to step into that preventative space.
Yeah. As a transport owner, there is a clear pathway for assessing physical injuries and planned return to work. I'm not aware of what to do with regard to assessing mental health and supporting drivers, logistics staff who return to work. Are you aware of agencies that can help, or is there something that your business, Groov, can help with?
Yeah, Groov, we can help you with that. So we're not so much ambulance in the bottom of the cliff, but we can certainly help your leaders to deal with the mental health side of leadership. So we call it performance care. If someone's coming off a mental health injury, then you should be able to connect with the people around them to have a come back to work, right? If it's not serious and they haven't had help, then that whole care side, we can certainly teach you how to do that. And it's, like I said, you don't want to be the expert. You just want to be the person that's
Support
there for you.
there. Yeah.
And one of the scariest things, we know that if someone stays off with mental health, it's that isolation, right, that can keep them off work. So if someone, although you might not understand what they're going through mentally, keep the door open, because getting back to work quickly and being accepted is fundamental in recovery for mental health.
There you go. So Groov, everyone, there's lots of tools there that they can help you with. Drivers and dispatch questions. There can be a lot of pressure on drivers to get stuff delivered, right? I mean, it's the consumer has created these problems, right? Demand,
totally.
Faster. Yeah. They are prescribed set breaks, so stopping is not always that easy. Often they bear the brunt of customer complaints if the delivery is late or damaged, something like that. So long days on the road can be very tiring, and sometimes general negativity can creep in. Have you got any mental exercises you can share to help with us? We've sort of done a little bit of that, like the breathing thing obviously is really...
Yeah, breathing's really important, but just take micro breaks, people. I'll tell you a story so you might remember this. I'm going to Fiji with a whole lot of other people like me, right? And everyone's going on holiday except for the two young Fijian boys that are sitting in front of me. The plane lands, ting, and everyone's up. They got their trolleys and they're off, right? Except for these two Fijian boys. And I'm caught behind them. And I've got the same anxiousness to get out of the plane and keep going. But they walk really slow. And I'm standing behind them. Everyone's gone. Through customs, bottle of gin, standing waiting for their bags. I'm behind these two beautiful Fijian boys. And they said, as they walked out of the plane, they said, "Bula, man, how are you?" To the person outside the gate that everyone just walked past. So I said Bula to him as well. We get to customs. "Bula, my friend, how are you?" It was a lady. "Hello, auntie, how are you?" Didn't know if they were a real auntie, but these two young boys, right, said hello. They walked to the conveyor belt. Guess what was coming out?
Their bags.
Our bags.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we'd done all this rushing. So those two Fijian boys taught me how to walk slow, right? And I'm busy. But when I walk out of this building here, I will walk slow to my Vespa. I will walk slow to my car. I will walk slow from A to B, because you know what happens? I see trees. I see birds. I see people. They smile at me, right? So that was one of the biggest mental health lessons I've got. So how does that translate to you guys? Take a mini break and go slow. You can eat your scone slowly. You can drink your coffee in a cup and not a takeaway cup. It's 3 or 4 minutes. And those little mini breaks and walking slow or doing those little things just give you 10% more energy at the end of the day. Because what happens with our brain? You've got more inputs in your brain today than our grandparents had a lifetime. Every one of you don't have work-life balance anymore.
No.
You have inputs. So I know your phone, I know you're away from home, you might be driving and you ring home with it, but leave it in the cab and go and have a cup of coffee, right? Or go and have a walk and don't take it, because we need those mini breaks now. And if you do those mini breaks,
re-energize.
and I know time's money, people, right? Yeah. And I know you're under the pump.
But that comes down to the operators too, to take the, we've got to start being better at this and not put the pressure on, and just accept sometimes that, we're not going to get that today. I mean, it's a challenge. It's a massive challenge to try and find that, balance that out, because we've generated this issue.
So I've got a question for you, actually, that I was really intrigued to ask you. So how did you slow your brain down going at that speed?
Oh, my God. Because it naturally becomes the norm, because you get used to it. I've sort of been asked that question before. It's like you're doing 300 Ks down Conrod Straight. I mean, oh my God, but it just becomes the norm because you do it repetitively. So it's just standard, and you don't react to it anymore like you did when you first started doing it.
So if I can reverse that for all the truck drivers, the reverse is what's happened. The norm now is you don't have any brakes. The norm now is that you're looking at your phone, you've got inputs, you've got your dispatch saying there's another delivery you've got all these things. So the norm is actually your mind rushing. So what happens with that? What happens with me when my mind is getting all these emails and all this input is it starts rushing to the next thing or what I need to do. But when I consciously slow that down by walking or sitting without my phone to have a cup of coffee, it slows itself down, because it's actually the idea of how much I've got to do rather than just doing one thing at a time. So there's a little bit of technique you can throw in, right? If you're driving from A to B, right, there's no other way. You're going from A to B. So it's no use worrying what B to C looks like, but it does take a little bit of training, because we're used to
just
all that rush,
and looking to the end. When you haven't even got from the first point to the second point, but you're already looking at the end,
exactly.
And that's not going to help.
Right. So if I sit in a car with you and you're going 300 down the back straight, I'm white shitting myself, and you're smiling because you're probably 20 Ks off what you're worried about. We just need to put that in our lives now. Life is sped up. We're taking our phones to the toilet.
We keep talking about it. I mean, you're right, and it's understanding this more, talking about it more, and actually, we've all got to somehow try to accept it, right?
Yeah, and look at other cultures. Like I said, what I learned from the Italians about sitting down and breaking bread and having food. What I've learned from those two Fijian boys who are just living their moment. They probably go, there's all these little things that you can put into your life around your mental health. I can't teach you how to drive a truck. I can't. You could probably teach me how to drive a car, but I'd never be as good as you. So, but there are things you can take control back of, and slowing your world up is one of those.
Huge appreciation for your time, and I know you have talked about these things quite a few times, but so we appreciate that you've agreed to come and have a chat, and I'm sure that the listeners on our podcast are going to enjoy this massively and take a lot away from it. So, mate, great to catch up. It's been too long, as always.
Yes.
And
can I just
great work
thank
that
you.
you're doing.
Can I just say to all of you guys that are possibly driving and listening to this, I just want you to say one thing to yourself: I'm awesome. Because you forget.
I thank you for that, because they are awesome, and it's not recognised enough. And the people out there that are turning up at the supermarket, turning up at the bloody the petrol station, turning up at their favourite bloody hardware store, whatever, and expecting that whatever they want is on the shelf. It's only there because of these people.
Totally.
And it's not recognised enough.
Exactly. And part of looking after your mental health is celebrating, and you should celebrate yourself. You're
said.
Awesome. No one's going to tell you that.
Not enough.
So you got to tell it to yourself. So you're in the truck, no one's listening.
That's
just
it.
keep telling yourself you're awesome.
Yeah.
I say it to myself every day. JK, you're awesome, because it'll work for you. And I think those things are important. And don't forget why you do that job. You do that job because you care, you love what you're doing, and you're delivering, and you're in a service industry that we cannot survive without.
That's it.
But unfortunately, this world has driven people to expect more and more and more, and we forget about the little things. So you're awesome.
Hey, so a big thanks to AutoSense who have created and produced this podcast. If you like what you've heard today, then please subscribe to the podcast so that you'll get alerts each time we produce a new one and put it up. If you have a question or you have someone that you'd like to hear from that I can have a chat to, let us know and we'll do our best to engage with them. So until next time, thanks heaps and safe driving out there.